of Code Concepts with myself, Rachel Patterson, and Pete Roquet. This is a glorious Friday morning, April 15th now, 2022. I can't believe we're already into April of the month, or of the year rather. As always, Pete and I are here to bring you some amazing industry professionals who have a wealth of knowledge that we just enjoy listening to, learning about, and absorbing. So with that, today we have an awesome special guest, Mr. Benjamin Breadmore, who is the town manager and chief building official for the town of Holden, Maine. So with me, I get to say first and foremost, I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Breadmore at the ABM this last year, right, Mr. Breadmore?
I think I remember it. Yeah.
A whirlwind.
Bit of a whirlwind of a week, but yes, no, I enjoyed that, and I appreciate your kind words introducing me this morning.
Yeah, no, it was special. Mr. Breadmore, Benjamin Breadmore, was elected to the ICC board, which was an honoring experience to be a part of that. And we'll certainly talk about that a little bit more here in our show, but Ben was nominated from the floor, so seeing how that works out, and again, we'll let him speak to that a little bit. It's powerful, it's special, and it's amazing, and we're just excited to have you here today. So Ben, we'll do a little bit more, hays and highs and whatnot, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you. Again, Ben Breadmore. I live in the town of Holden, Maine, which I am fortunate enough to serve as a town manager, chief building official. That's my short title. The long version includes plumbing inspector, economic development director, planner, fair hearing officer, constable. I have been a pig catcher in town before. I added that to the resume. Even driving instructor now for a highway department. Now that there's new federal regulations out there, I now have that title. So it's awfully nice that in small town Maine we can still do a one-stop shop, and you go down to the corner store and grab a cup of coffee, and everybody knows your name, whether that's good or bad. At least they know your name.
That's wonderful. That's vast in all of your experience. So what else can you add to that list?
Well, the interesting thing is my wife and I kind of have a standing deal that if we need groceries, I don't have to go get them because it takes me about 4 hours at the grocery store, because I'll get, well, geez, I really want to put that shed on my property. How far off this property line do I have to be? Or, you haven't fixed that pothole over on the Fisher Road yet. Or perfect example, we even went kayaking during COVID because that was the cool thing, to get outside, enjoy yourselves. We're probably 100 feet off of shore in town, and one of the local residents yelling at me from the shoreline, hey, my neighbor said I can't have my wood shed closer than 100 feet. I'm like, she's like, really? We're literally in the middle of the water. And I said, so I screamed across the water, yes, you can't be closer than 100 feet. Yes, you need a permit, and we're open on Monday. Have a great weekend.
That's awesome. You almost have to put a mask on, like a Tyvek suit whenever you go out.
That's half the reason I grew the beard.
That's funny. So you basically, the old school TV shows where like you wear the different hat, like, hey.
So yes. I'll be honest. I did get a nameplate made when I got this job. On one side it does say code official. You flip it, and the other side it says town manager, because Andy Griffith had the justice of the peace, yes. Sheriff, the whole bit. And I have had to use it once where a gentleman was unsatisfied with my answer as a code official and wished to speak to my boss, and I flipped it.
How did that one turn out?
Thankfully, he had a good sense of humor.
That is awesome.
That's the benefit of having a code background. The answer is what the answer is. Black and white.
So how does one become the town manager in your town? I know we're going to talk about you being a building official, but how does one become the town manager? And you're such a young guy. So how does one become a town manager at your age?
It is kind of fun that I'm the young guy in a lot of rooms in the code world, but I'm also the young guy in a lot of rooms in the town manager world too. I was actually the youngest town manager for quite a few years in Maine, almost 6, until someone I went to college with beat me by a month, which I thanked her for that. I actually went to school at University of Maine in Orono. I started off my freshman year in elementary education because I thought that'd be a great idea. Then I woke up sophomore year, like most folks do, and said, what am I doing? And to be entirely honest, and this is a true story, you can ask my mother because it still drives her nuts. I knew I wanted to get out of elementary ed. There was a couple of different options in University of Maine. I know I wanted to stay in Maine because I got, as we say, I wasn't born here, but I got here as fast as I could. So the idea was either public administration or forestry. And I have a 1921 silver dollar. Public administration was heads and forestry was tails. And I flipped the coin.
That's awesome.
And it was 10, so 12 years later, here I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So-
discussed a little bit before we got on about, even the youngest one in the room here today. So it's quite impressive, all of the things that you've accomplished, Ben.
I've been accused of grass not growing under my boots, and I appreciate that compliment. So I try to keep it true every day as much as I can.
That's awesome. So now, when you first started in the public administration, what was your first role? Was it? I mean, were you a clerk? Were you a building inspector? What was it?
So when I was going through the public administration program at Orono, our junior senior year, we are required to do an internship, and I was very fortunate. A very, very good friend of mine actually let me rent a room from him, pretty much paying what you can, when you can, if you can, because being a poor college student in a different state, that didn't work so well. But I got a internship with the city of Brewer, Maine, where I basically shadowed the assistant and city manager for about 15 weeks. And I got to go into, the finance department, the highway department, the planning department. Ironically, the only one I couldn't shadow was the code department because he was so busy running ragged, he didn't have time.
Wow.
That worked out great. I really enjoyed it. It gave me a flavor for what I wanted to take on in my role for a career. However, graduating in 2010 was not a great time to try to find a job. It was, I'd send out probably 10 to 12 resumes a day throughout the country, everything else. I figured, if I got to move, I have to move, but I'd really like to stay in Maine. And one day I got a phone call from my former gentleman I shadowed at the city of Brewer and said, hey, we have a 15-week opening. A woman in the code enforcement department is a permit tech, is taking maternity leave. Are you interested in filling in? I said, I'll wash windows. I don't care. I want a job. So no real background in code before, but I said, I can do office work. I proved that. So they gave me the opportunity. I learned a lot in a short amount of time. It was also at the same time the state of Maine was adopting the first state building code. So everybody kind of started on the same level. I was learning alongside a lot of the folks that were, but at the same time, in part of that transition, they brought on another individual as well who became my mentor, Stuart Brooks. When I started, I was 22. Stu was 66.
Wow.
And he's taught me quite a bit over the time. When I got into Brewer a little later, about 6-8 months, I think, after I was after the 15 weeks, Tina, wonderful woman, decided to be a stay-at-home mom. I was able to acquire the job full-time, which is great because now I could set down roots, enjoy myself, and build a career. But my boss, who had a degree in electrical engineering, who was there for about 4 or 5 months longer than I was, said, I think I'm going to go work for Poland Spring Water and be an electrical engineer again. So I said, oh, great. My boss at the time pretty much said, well, it's you. I said, well, it's me until you find somebody better. And with the caveat that I get to keep my mentor, Stu, as my assistant at least 2 to 3 days a week. And Stu was willing to work 2 days a week. So I was able to learn side by side with him, who he had started 15 different code offices in the state of Maine. He'd done it since 1989, I think, since we actually adopted the program in the state. Learned a lot, became really good friends. He actually ended up selling me 2 houses and officiating my wedding. So really great mentor.
Wow. That's pretty incredible how you meet somebody and not only do they, make a difference in your professional life, they make a difference in your personal life as well.
They really do. And even yesterday, I mean, Stu was fortunate enough. He retired finally at age 75 this year, kind of to speed up because he hasn't slowed down any. But yesterday, the Maine State Legislature recognized the Maine Building Officials and Inspectors Association on their 50th anniversary this year. It's coming up next month. So Stu, although retired, we still got him down there. We got some great time at the State House, some good photos together and things. And we both have some great memories for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Ben, I know a lot of our viewers know what ICC is and what they do and what they promote, but I don't know if a lot of people know about the Emerging Leadership Program. the Emerging Leadership Council program that they do offer. I mean, it's an incredible program that now I get to be a part of.
And
And until I met you, and until I met all the other board shadows and individuals at the ABM, I didn't even know that this existed. Even with having information and having the website down and devouring it, it's still not necessarily something that was front and center. So, how did you hear about the Emerging Leadership Council and get on it and get going with all that?
so that's a story I do love to tell. So thanks for asking about that one, because I was going to bring it up either way. I was pretty fortunate. Again, a lot of it goes back to my mentor, Stu, for this reason. We'd have a session every month over in another town. A group of code officers get together. We were having trouble finding training. So we finally put our heads together and said, listen, what's it take to do our own training? We reached out. Carla Higgs was awesome. She really helped us get our Northern Maine chapter started so we could get a chapter benefit day to get some of that ball rolling. And we started the Northern Maine chapter. So that was the same year that they were doing the Northeast regional tour with the ICC. So we got to do I always call it a dog and pony show, because that's what it is. But it's a great meet and greet and opportunity to shake hands and learn from people and make acquaintances and things like that. And that kind of facilitated the next step. I won't forget it. One day I was out. It was Friday afternoon. The highway department only works 4 days a week in the summer. And it's a 2-hour call out to fill a pothole. Or it's me getting out of the office for about 45 minutes to an hour filling a pothole. So I went out and filled the pothole, and my chapter president at the time, Paul Demers, had Rob Drexler, sitting ICC board of director at the time, on the phone. I said, hey, how'd you like to come to Kansas City? And I said, yeah, sure. Can I call you back in like 20 minutes? I got to finish filling a pothole. He goes, why are you filling a pothole? You're a code officer. I said, yeah, that's one hat. Sure. So was able to call him back 20 minutes later. I was fortunate enough to be one of the first board shadows and sit on what eventually ended up being the advisory council to craft the ELMC with some great folks like Elizabeth Arrington, Rebecca Brown, and Mike Tomaselli, Andre, of course, who you guys we spoke with about a month or so ago. Really made some great friends, and really was very humbled to be part of crafting what the ELMC is today. And I'm really anxious to see where they can take it, because I've already heard some ideas they have, and I'm really excited for it. But that was really my segue into it, and the opportunity to learn from my peers across the country, new network, new resources, and help promote that next generation, because we all know that cliff is coming, and it's a lot closer than it used to be. So thankfully, there's some newer, fresher faces, less gray in the room, although I am getting grayer by the day.
So how is that board made up? I'm sorry, Pete. I have so many questions about all of the emerging leaders. So it's something I'm involved in and super excited about too. So bear with me, Ben and Pete.
Oh, by all means. No, this is a topic I love talking about.
Good. So how is that made up? Like, how is the program made up? What is the ultimate goal aside from training? Are there committees? How essentially can an average everyday individual get involved with this program?
So one of the things that I love is kind of resetting that misconcept that you have to be under 35 or less than 10 years. That's only to sit on the governing committee. And it's an either or, and they're working on kind of refining that to open it up a little bit, because we have some really great folks that would love to participate. And they don't want to. I mean, I'm still technically part of, but they don't want to close the door on anybody. It wants to be inclusive. It wants to be, opportunity to give back. Right. So basically, during my time on the board, what we tried to look at was a diverse makeup geographically, because that was the biggest way we felt we could make an impact. A guy from Northern Maine being on a board where have 60-some thousand members and everything else is not what most folks expect. But I feel I can offer that perspective of a small town jurisdiction, but we also have major jurisdiction folks. I mean, when we first started, there was me, there was Jesse Dienda from California, John Hudgens from he's in Florida. We go back and forth a lot about Tampa Bay and stealing Tom Brady, but I won't bring that up too much because that'll be the rest of the conversation. But it was kind of keeping that geographical difference, because we all have different things we encounter in our backyards, and we have different views because of where we come from. So it really helped it evolve. But the biggest thing is anybody can participate. ELMC needs young folks just as much as mentors and those that are seasoned, because we don't want to lose that knowledge. I mean, the biggest thing we all face in our day-to-day lives is institutional knowledge. And somebody who's worked for municipality or jurisdiction for 40 years, they're great. But when they retire, so much goes with them that you can't put a price tag on. We have books, we have references, we have codes that are great, but having that knowledge base is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing is everyone needs to get online, anyone under 35 and with 10 years or less, right?
Mhm.
Years of experience in the field. And it's an application process. It's pretty
That's it.
simple and easy,
And that's just to serve on the governing committee.
right?
Anybody can join ELMC, and we strongly encourage it because many hands make light work.
Yes, that's true. And it's such a good group of individuals. Every meeting is very uplifting and lighthearted. I think it's, everybody's in the same space. You want to make the world better. You want to make the world safer. So it's truly just a good place to be when you have that mindset. So thanks for sharing a little bit about that. Sorry, Pete, go ahead.
No. And so, I mean, you covered having to go to Kansas City and stuff. So what are the main points that you feel that, the Emerging Leaders Council help you prepare for the actual ICC board?
Oh, I mean, if I hadn't had that exposure, I wouldn't have been near brave enough to dip a toe into this pond. One thing I'll say about it's not just the board of directors of ICC or ELMC or building membership or fire science or any of the boards and committees. It's walking into ICC my first time in Kansas City. I've been a code officer at that point for five or 6 years. We do it in Maine. There's a ton of amendments. I didn't know the code. If anybody says they know the code cover to cover, I'd challenge that a little bit. But I'm walking into a room of the professionals that have done this for careers, and these are the folks. It was pretty intimidating walking into that room. But it's amazing how quickly that disappeared. Mm-hmm. The group of folks are so inviting, so want to see everyone succeed, work together. A little adage from my mentor: everybody works together for the better part of the whole.
Yeah.
And that's what I see ICC as. I mean, we're looking to build better for the future, to provide the best level of codes in the world that can provide a safer, better, more sustainable tomorrow. And, bringing on the next generations, a way we do that, but we have to do that today too. And that's one of the reasons I did what I did running for the board, because I think I can be part of that. I think it can offer a generational perspective, and I'm happy to be able to serve. I'm at the right time in my career and my personal life that I have support to do that. I have a very, very good jurisdiction at home. It does kind of help. My council chair is a code official 2 towns over, so he gets it. He is trying to be my board shadow this year to Kentucky. I'm not sure if there's a conflict of interest there, but we'll see.
That's awesome.
No, that's great. No, it's great to hear all this stuff, because you know what. Let's go back to you becoming a code official. I mean, because you eventually became a building official. So how does that journey? How did that journey start from going from the code compliance over to like the actual building inspection and building official and those kind of things?
Absolutely. So as I said, I started off as a glorified permit tech, which I say glorified because we did zoning, we did permits, we did loose dog complaints, all sorts of stuff. And my favorite one we always had, we call it the lawn police, because in the municipality I worked in, we did have property maintenance, which is a unique touching point in some towns in Maine, because in most towns in Maine, you can't see your own neighbors. So, but I started off as the permit tech. We do a lot of cross training in everything we do. Everything we do cross training. So we have to. I'll get to that, Jack. Don't worry.
I'm sorry, that was funny, Jack.
When we get to that 2021 COVID period, I'll bring up the beard. But
Fair enough.
being a permit tech, cross training, he said, we'll pay for your licensing. Maine is a little different. They do not recognize the ICC licensing. I'm still pushing for that. I pushed for that since day one. Thankfully, after 9 years, we finally have a state building official. Hopefully that's going to, segue in that direction. But we do have 14 different areas of discipline that state will test you on for building, insulation, radon, ventilation, electrical, plumbing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As well as health officer, because most code officers actually serve as health officials as well in the state of Maine.
Wow.
So actually, a little side note, in the health officer's manual, when you have a septic issue, you call the LPI and 9 times out of 10 or more, you just call yourself. So,
Funny.
but that kind of evolved. Having my background, public administration and supervisory role, most of my career, for some reason, regardless of what I've done, I've ended up in that kind of supervisory role. One of the best I'll say the second best job I ever had, besides being a code official, of course. When I worked at university, I drove the Zamboni.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And after my first 6 weeks, they threw me keys to the multi-million-dollar arena and said, "Yeah, you're taking the night shift. Good luck." So it was a supervisor over students at the time, but that came with its own challenges and learning experience. And now I oversee a staff of probably about 45 for the municipality and a budget of roughly 9 million, including schools, I think. So, yeah.
It's pretty
So that kind of evolved and opportunity presented itself. I really enjoyed my time in Brewer. I was there for 4.5 years. It just so happened that the code official of the town of Holden, where I resided, resigned. He went to a bigger community. They were looking for somebody to help out. I'd been the backup for 4 years at that point. So through the summertime, I helped them get their permits and inspections squared away, some weekends and late nights. But unfortunately, the town manager at the time also became sick and ended up resigning. So in an effort to try to save a couple of bucks, they actually advertised for a town manager / code official. And I can tell you, in the entire state of 417 municipalities, there are 2 of us.
Wow.
So it's a unique bill, but it's definitely a challenge. I enjoy it quite a bit. Anything from a septic inspection this morning at 6 to town paving bids at 9 to great interviews at noon, my time, to insulation inspection this afternoon, and then we'll see what the rest of the day brings. So it's definitely breaks up the monotony. I'm not always doing plans review, but I'm not always doing personnel issues, and it gives a well-rounded approach, I like to think. So.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Now, dealing with being in my experience, you don't see many building officials that eventually become town managers. Normally, they stop at like a director, and that's it. Now, having to deal with the politics of the building code and being town manager, how's that unique for you? I mean, me being in government for a long time and seeing how everything plays out, how does it play out for you, being a town manager and a CBO?
So I will say most CEOs don't become town managers because it's too bright for it. They're way too smart to do this. I'll answer that by answering another question at the same time. It's a population of 3,200 in my jurisdiction. We do butt up against a couple of things now and then, but when somebody brings us a concern with their project, their build, their design, we try to give the opportunity to say, okay, we know you can't do this and here's X, Y, and Z, Y. Code and commentary, bread and butter. Gives me the backup rationale of why I can't let you do what you so badly want to do. However, we try to be creative and we try to say, have you thought about X, Y, or Z instead of this? Here's some opportunities. Here's what would meet the letter of the code, letter of the intent, whether that be building code or zoning. Being the economic development director, we have to get creative sometimes on, we got Tractor Supply coming to town, largest retailer in the whole town, Tractor Supply. But how do we make that work? I mean, there's some folks that came out to the public meetings and like, well, gee, this is going to, this destroy the character of the town. Well, those same people are still going to Tractor Supply every Sunday and picking up feed. So it's just being part of the community. I attend the school board meetings most of the time. We take part, help out the local churches and things. It's just, we had mentioned Mayberry earlier. That's as close as we can try to get because it's a nice, quiet little town. Yeah. That being said, we do have full-time PD, full-time fire, and everything else, and they do love having fun and pulling people over on the main drag. We are a town of 3,200 people and 36 square miles, but we are what we call the gateway to Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park. So though we have 3,200 people, almost 40,000+ cars a day in the summer go by my front door of the office. Thankfully, I don't live on 1A. But we see everything and anything.
Yeah, so you're just like a little supernova of energy all over the place, and it's funny because being like not only on the ICC board of directors where you're very present at your own town, you have to be very present. You do. And even making an appearance here, I mean, we're taking up a an hour of your Tom's time.
Hey, this is
But
my
you know
life.
what? But you know, I think it's important to note that you know, the generation that we're kind of focusing on now is using social media. Like the emergent leaders uses social media a lot,
Oh yeah.
which ICC is starting to use it as much as the emergent leaders. But I think that kind of gets lost sometimes. It's that messaging. You know, I mean, sometimes we sound like a, you know, like a broken record or cassette or whatever. You know, we just
What's a cassette?
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because you know, I have kids and my kids don't know what a cassette is.
Yeah.
You know, it's even the CD. They're like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
You know, so yeah,
It's just something that you lost under the seat of the truck and got scratched and you can never listen to again. But
well, I'm gonna show you something real quick from my code enforcement days. Hold on.
I can only imagine what this is going to be.
ooh,
Oh!
our police department still has one of those. We can't buy film for it anymore. But
It's not in your historical museum cabinet.
no, I will say, you know, you mentioned the social media piece. We did a roundtable discussion. I don't remember which ABM or mid-year. Well, it was an ABM, but I don't remember which one it was, to be honest, because that wasn't the focal point. The focal point was we did this roundtable with folks, and it was just quick little 2, 3, 4 minute interviews. And one of the comments I'll never forget was it was one of the interviewees' grandmothers, and said, "This is so cool. I didn't actually know what my granddaughter did." And if we can hit folks on that level, that's just really cool, because that's raising the profile, it's raising the education. I mean, how many times have we all encounter folks that, you know, they've never heard of a code official before? Like, wait, what do you do? Like, I need a permit to do what? No, I'm just gonna put my shit where I want. Yeah. So being able to raise that profile is huge.
Absolutely.
No, I 100% agree. I think you know, when we feature, you know, some of these board of directors, because we want to give you ICC a voice. Say, hey, this is who your representatives are. They're coming on the show. They're talking about things like how did they get there? If Ben can do it, I can do it. You know,
anybody can trust me. If I can do it, step up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and even like, you know, listening to some of these folks that have all these certifications and stuff, you know, a lot of them, it took some work. Some of them just kind of came easy. But, you know, we like to share these stories because we all, you know, a lot of us didn't grow up saying, hey, I want to be a code official or be a town manager when I grow up. You know, I never thought I wanted to be a consultant.
So the funny story with that, every year we have the reading day over the elementary school. And this will be my 6th year doing it, I think. I always try to bring a building-related book or, you know, municipal, you know, junior achievement-related book. And everybody goes, who knows what a town manager is? And their faces are all blank. Who knows what a code officer is? And they're like, huh? Who likes fire guys? Oh, yeah, they have hats and red trucks, and they bring us lunch boxes. And, yeah, I work with them.
I work with them.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's too funny. But, you know, and it goes back to some of the things that, you know, Rachel and I are working on. We're working on, like, you know, educating kids because, you know, like growing up, you know, the police had McGruff and the fire department had Smokey the Bear. We have nobody, you know? You know, and
sorry, we have who, Pete? We have nobody?
No, well, not yet, you know. But so we're working on a couple projects to kind of outreach to kids, just to kind of give them that sprinkle of, you know what, we're here, make your building safe, and for you to live in a clean town. And that's
absolutely
for us to explain it to a 5-year-old. To us, that's, you know, that makes sense to them, you know, because you ask most code officers, hey, what do you do for a living? They'll spot out, well, you know, I do receiverships and I do condemnations. I'm like, and you know, when people ask me, what do I do for a living? I tell people to cut their grass.
Yep.
They're like, wow, you get paid really well. Well, I do it really well.
Yep. and that's a big thing. I mean, especially in today's world with kids. I mean, I know, you know, I've been to these schools and I've done some of the readings and stuff, and kids today can do more with my phone than I can. And that scares me, because when I was their age, I was more worried about, you know, finding a cool stick outside. And they just absorb it so much better. So I joke about, you know, I work with the fire guys, but some of the kids, they understand. We bring materials over for, you know, fire safety and life safety and things like that. They actually bring it home. I've had parents bring their kids in that they filled out the worksheets they gave them. They just wanted to see, you know, well, how do you think we did? And that's the most rewarding piece, when the parent connects with the kid understands some life safety, and that is going to be, that's not the kid getting arrested. To put it very bluntly.
Sure.
That's the kid that gets ingrained in their community, understands that, folks are here to help. They see that, they see police officers, they see the firefighters, and, that's a standard. And that's great that we can be that standard if somebody wants to strive to be. And the biggest thing is just not letting them down.
Mm-hmm. Ben, one of my favorite sayings, and I know it's probably terrible, but I say, if common sense were common, everyone would have it. And I think that's our job, to bring that common sense to our next generation. Because again, if it were common, we would all have it, and we just don't. It's something that has to be taught.
We have a very similar saying up here: if common sense were common, we only have a job.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's our job to be there. So, getting into these environments, like you said, with the schools, and, Pete's talked to Miss Shirley Ellis, and in regard to her coming and doing the same thing, reading a book and then building a structure that these kids can take home to show their parents. Yeah. That's so magical, because they're putting that life safety, information on with a project that they got to build, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cash.
Yeah, so you can see all the comments. Quick shout out to Mr. Matt Cozyline, who said, "Hey, code enforcement has me." Beautiful, I love it. No, but when it comes down to some of these trainings, because I look at how do we make this more interactive or make it fun for these junior high kids, because I have a 6-year-old that I take on, little walks with me, and the little 6-year-old notices code violations, and we make TikToks out of them. My 12-year-old, he's not interested in any of it. He's always in like, "Hey, isn't that like against the code?" I'm like, everything's against the code. But the way you explain it to people, because I have had the same experience in a Hispanic community. I'm like, "Hey, who knows what a code enforcement is?" Nobody knows what it is. And then I go, "Who knows what the city is?" "Hey, the city's going to come after you." Everybody raises their hand. I go, "Hey, that's me."
We're the government. We're here to help.
We're the government. We're here to help. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, it is entertaining, because, even going out to dinner with family and things. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one on this call or listening in that's been standing at Longhorn or Olive Garden, and you're waiting for your table, and there's an emergency light above your head, and you hit the button. You can't help it. Unfortunately, I'd say 60-80% of the time that light's out. But it's real fun when your brother-in-law starts doing it too, and he's a mechanic.
That's funny. Well, you get to a point in your career where people don't want to invite you to their house because of their illegal alterations. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm off the clock. So funny. Yeah. My wife and I, before we were married, we actually bought a house together, which I'm pretty impressed I ended up getting married after that. Real estate agents are a lot of fun when they say there's 3 or 4 bedrooms. And I said, no, there's no egress windows out of that. Sorry. You can have a closet all you want. The important things were found, though. We found the right spot for the Christmas tree. I have a garage. That was all I really cared about. Everything else is fine. But it can be a painful process. So. Let me see. So we have a comment. "Guilty, and Disneyland was no fun for my kids and I." Oh, yeah. It happened. We start looking at everything. We're like, "Oh, man, look at that." So
just getting in last night, I was pulling into the hotel, and there's a slew of water just coming from the actual hotel. Later, you see that it's coming from the swimming pool. Hazardous material listed on the door. It's hard to keep that stuff.
That's just minor.
Just minor. Violationized. They never go away.
They don't. And it's amazing how many town offices I go into, or even yesterday at the State House, looking at fall protection in a historic building. And I'm like, you stand around the rotunda on the 2nd floor and all the ballast. I mean, you put your fist through it and I go, that's not 4 inches, but okay.
I can't imagine that at Disneyland, Jack.
So, Ben, one of the things that, we got to, it was my first time at ABM in Pennsylvania this last year. And, I got to see, the election officer, especially you. I've never seen people line up and say, "Hey, I support this guy," or so, which was pretty impressive. So, let's go back to,
Yep. So I was pretty fortunate. The previous ABM in Las Vegas, I was the outgoing chair of the Emerging Leaders Membership Council. And I was great. It was a great run. I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of great people. ELMC was really, really great to me, and I'm happy I was able to give something back to it. Fast forward a couple weeks after Las Vegas, I'm sitting at home having breakfast, and I get a call from some of the folks in the region. And they said, hey, we'd really like to talk to you about possibly running for the board. I said, who's running for the board? But, you know, the region got together and they said, you know, we really like to put up somebody as a candidate, and we've seen you active, because if I start something, I want to do it right. I don't want to do it half cheeked, so to speak. And so I got active in the state chapter. Prior to that, I actually started the Northern Maine chapter. I got active in the region, New England building officials, Eastern states, etc. So there was support there. And I said, if I'm the face you guys want to put up there for some reason, okay. But if I do it, I want to do it right. And this is you know, even running for the board in itself is a part-time job, if not close to full-time, as anyone who's run a few folks on this call, I'm sure can attest to. It's a daily thing. I mean, there's phone calls, there's Zoom meetings. I mean, COVID, honestly, I think changed the game a little bit for a lot of stuff, because I mean, small town Holden, Maine guy was able to queue in with the Napa Valley, California code officials and just introduce myself and say hi. And, you know, you guys have much better scenery than I do. So that was a big thing. Making the choice to do it really boiled down to a couple very simple things. Could I do it justice? I felt I could, because I can bring a perspective that I think the board could use. Not that I'm not saying I'm going in to change the board or change the organization or change the world, but I can offer that perspective. Did I have support at home? My wife, actually, her first ABM was Las Vegas. She saw all the great folks that I talk about, and she could finally put faces to names. She saw how supportive it was, and she said, go for it. Wow. And my jurisdiction. As we've covered before in this discussion, I wear a few hats for my town. Thankfully, I would put my staff against anybody else in the state of the country. They are crackerjack. They can pitch in. They can do some amazing stuff. It really makes a difference for us, because that gave me the incentive, the support, and honestly, a big kick in the butt on ambition to take the shot, because it's a scary thing taking that risk, because you pour a lot into probably 6 or 7 months to come down to, I don't know, I think it came down to 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
I will say, during that 10-minute period, do not lock your knees when you're standing up there.
Yeah, you pass out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and it's, you know, just watching the different people from all over the country and say, hey, you know, I support this guy or support that guy. It was just amazing to watch. You know, it's and you know, I saw several, you know, like kind of like I would say vote offs. So I don't know how to say it, but you know, kind of showdowns or whatever. But you know, end of the day, I think it was a very, very interesting process. You realize how diverse our ICC board is. You know, you get to experience all that, and you know, now that you're on the board, what are some of the, you know, what are some of the things that you're actively working on or looking to promote, or you know, what are things that you're involved in that you're really kind of like, hey, you know what, maybe more people should pay attention to this.
Yep. So, I mean, some of the things I'm involved in, I mean, obviously, as I joke, a freshman congressman, you know, you get committee appointments, you get jurisdictional regional appointments and things that you liaison to. Like last night on the phone with Colorado, I mean, it was my 9:30, 10 o'clock is when I got off the phone, I think. But, you know, getting out to meet the members, answer any questions they may have, you know, just trying to be that liaison. I got appointed this year to the CEO Evaluation Committee, as well as Council Policy Review Committee and Awards Committee this year. So I'm sinking my teeth into that and trying to provide what I can. You know, from my own perspective, we looked at a few different council policies for certain reasons. But again, I'm going to go through every single one. And I sent a nice list to the attorney to say, I know I'm pretty sure we did this already, but we missed a couple of spots on gender neutrality, chairman versus chairperson, things like that. I do have a little attention to detail, but that comes from my financial background. When I have to present a $9 million budget, I need to account for every dollar. So that's what I'm hoping I can, my responsibility, feel I can be strong in what I bring to the board in that regard. And the election was really, really special this year. I mean, I really enjoyed it. There are no bad candidates. I honestly don't think. If anybody's willing to step up and run for the board, it's because they have people behind them supporting them to do it. And running from the floor is a very, I'm going to call it a unique thing, but it seems to happen at least every ABM. But if your supporters put you there, you have to go to the end. Regardless of what happens, go to the end. Because they put a lot of faith and time in you. They've earned it. They deserve it. So.
No, I agree. Just hearing the different perspectives from the different, the different chapters. It was pretty. I wouldn't say intense because I wasn't you. I wasn't locking my knees, but
the other side of that light, it's intense.
No, I would say because you even feel the intensity in some of the people talking because they're like, hey, this is our guy or this is our guy, and you're sitting there, you're like, wow, these folks really, really want their candidate because you're representing a certain part of the nation. I mean, you're at large, but overall,
exactly. I mean, somebody asked me who I represent. I represent the membership of ICC.
Yeah, and even now, going into when we say we going into the digital age. I mean, I've hopped on a couple of calls where I see different board members here and there, and it's just amazing. Like, coming up, when I was using this thing, you never saw. You wouldn't ever had the chance to communicate with your board members. You just see them on a newsletter, on a brochure. Now they're more active. They're more in your face, and we bring them on here because we want to hear from them. So we're gonna have Jack on our show in a couple weeks. Talk about the process of getting ready for an ICC run. And it's you've done it, so you know how stressful it is. But we want somebody's perspective of what they're dealing with today.
Yep, it's no small task. It's 100% or nothing. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, but no, it's worth every minute because the relationships you build and the people you meet, and when you get the opportunity to be in person, the hands you shake. But you did mention seeing the board of directors on this call and that call. We pre-COVID we really didn't. I'll be the first to admit if there's a call I can hop on, even if I'm just listening and multitasking, doing plans review or going over budget stuff or looking at, pricing out paving costs per ton, which was yesterday's. If you can multitask, why not? And at least if you hear something, you can chime in, or if somebody has a question. I will admit I have asked once or twice to repeat the question, which I should listen better, but I try.
Well, you could always be like me and butt in once in a while. I concur.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yep.
Awesome. So Rachel I know Rachel still has a ton of questions because I see her squirming over there. What you got, Rachel?
No. It's special to have you on today. Like we talked about, getting to meet you in person and, having you stare at our ceiling last night as our liaison in our meeting.
It was a nice ceiling.
We had our camera functionality pointed a little bit up. So, I think that's really special and really powerful that you are able to come on and have, even if it is just a tidbit of information to add or listening intently while you're multitasking, it's important. And you took on this role and I commend you for that because it is important.
If I'm the liaison to a chapter, to a state, to a region, what have you, as my career goes on, if you have a meeting, it's my duty to be there. I can't make everyone, depending on life happens, but that was easy. And I appreciate Colorado being able to facilitate that link so I can do it. I don't mind staying up to 10 o'clock at night. Dog was asleep at my feet, worked out well. It's little stuff like that. Because otherwise, pre-COVID, would that have been an option? And I might have made it out to 1 or 2 meetings throughout the whole year. But this way, you guys meet every other month. Yeah, I'm happy to make the time. Right. Especially that time of night because that's cool down, that's relaxed. I've had dinner. I'm not missing dinner for a school board meeting. It's great.
being able to put that face to the name is really helpful, especially for someone like me. So you had touched on the COVID, and I think we need to give our listeners exactly what they want to hear. Tell us about the beard, Mr. Ben.
Yeah. So standing joke, just before COVID started, my wife went through she had open heart surgery for the second time. And the standing joke was I stopped shaving when she went in just to make sure that, everything went well. I don't know, totally mental, but hey, you do things when you're in love. So she came out flying colors, shaved the beard, and she said, I kind of like it. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll grow back. She's not as thrilled as how long it's getting, but I think it's kind of fun. But it kind of evolved when COVID hit. With the mask mandates and everything else, I did wear a mask. I was compliant. I even sent my staff home for like a month, which, I'm the one that came to work. And when you can bring your dog to work and there's nobody else here, everybody else coming back to work was kind of like, you can work remotely more. But yeah, it was just nice. It was my little COVID protest. And thankfully, we went to war. So COVID's over now, I think, but we'll see. So
we'll see. Something else happened in the world.
No, I did not curl the mustache today like I did yesterday, though. That's a lot of work in the morning.
So it's actually something that you do then?
Occasionally I will do. My mentor showed up at my office one day when he retired, and he had the curled mustache. And I said, I can't let that go unanswered. Nope. That is awesome. So we did have a good photo together yesterday, the curled mustaches at the State House with the legislature receiving the recognition for the 50 years. And it's a photo we will both treure. So
that's awesome. It's awesome that you have some fun with it. You need to have that, especially with all the hats that you wear. You got to have a little bit of fun.
We're all human. I mean, there's some goofy stuff we all do that some people are going to go, what is wrong with him? And as long as it's my wife saying that, I'm good. So, you keep it light, you keep it fun, and, you keep it human, because the things that we deal with on a daily basis are to help prevent folks from getting hurt, folks from living a better, cleaner, more sustainable lifestyle. Can we do that in everything we do? Yes, we actually can. Mm-hmm. One of the sales pitches that I make is I get a lot of calls from town managers as serving as a town manager code official. I got this new code person. They're telling me this. Is that real? Can they actually do that? Yeah, they can. And here's why they're doing that. But wrap your head around this for a second. You don't like code. Okay, great. That's the bad guy and everything else. You like taxes. You like a sustainable tax base. If you build a house to code and a house not to code, which one do you think is going to be there in 50 years that you can still tax? It's a reality. It's your fiscal responsibility, if nothing else, to provide for the future. And that does it. And it doesn't take much to do it. It really doesn't. It's just, reality is the building permit inspection is the cheapest insurance you're ever going to buy. Because if you catch it on the front end, you're saving tenfold in the back end. If you have to have somebody's pouring a 9-foot wall unbalanced backfill height, and there's one stick of rebar at the top, and they pour concrete, code official didn't see it. Well, somebody might say, well, it's already done. Oh, well. Somebody might make you rip it out, and you find the one stick. In the next couple of years, that wall's going to start. And how much more expensive is it going to be when you get a house on top of it? There's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and that's why I feel we're here, just to make sure it gets done right. It's not hard, but it takes a little time.
It does. It takes a little time, but it's worth it in the long run, right?
Every minute. I'm not sure if I should say minute, though. Because one thing my mentor did instill in me, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. So make your time count.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Good mentor you have there.
Stu's taught me a few things, and a few things you probably shouldn't have. But
so, Ben, we don't get that many town managers on the show. I mean, we get them here and there. But you know what? One of the things that I want to ask town managers, like, when you are hiring your new building inspectors or code, what are you looking for?
The balance of common sense. I will back anybody who is following the letter of the law to the nth degree without fail. But I want to see you offer me an option. Whenever I interview anyone, whether it be fire, highway, police, code, etc., I use what I call the old lady Kravitz routine. And last one I did was highway. So we're out on the dirt road. We're replacing old lady Kravitz's culvert. Little old lady Kravitz comes out hollering to me, "What are you doing? You're messing up my lawn. I can't believe you're wasting taxpayer dollars." How do you respond to that? honestly, that question gets you a better read on who somebody is and how they're going to react to it than anything else. Some folks have actually gone right and say, well, I'm going to explain to her that this is right and this is wrong and she doesn't know. And this, I said, oh, hold on. And some people say, well, if I'm the employee, it's my job to call the supervisor. I'm going to pass the buck. That's a great answer. Not that anybody future hires, don't watch this video, but it's just knowing how to work with people. And that's the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. Your customer can read your code book just as good as you can. That's the reality. Or if they're really smart, they get Digital Code Premium and they hit Control F and they can find anything they want. Little shameless plug there. I love that program.
Yeah.
It saves me hours of research now. It's great.
Right. So, and this is one of the things. The reason I asked that question is, in the world of code enforcement, that we always talk about giving people options and working with people because we're public servants. We're there to serve them. They're not always going to be right. I have this thing. We're not into customer. What do you call it? The customer's always right. It's the customer needs to make sure they follow the rules. But we do it in a way where we give them options. We make them part of the process. And when you do that and you work with people, it lessens your a lot of times, the safety factor, because people are generally mad when you go to them and say, hey, you need to do this. Well, you know what? The better way is like, hey, this came to our attention and now we're letting you know what's going on. And here's some options for you to comply. And how do we work with you? How much time do you need? Like, talking to people, you get a lot of response.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what a conversation can do. And we're exposed to all kinds of different concerns and relationships, and this is coming from a guy who has shut down 2 churches in his career so far. There is no worse thing. Thank you. See, I'm not alone. When things just aren't going right, somebody has to say, okay, we gotta come back to center here. We gotta understand why this is wrong. But having those conversations, not a month ago, I showed up on a work site. There was a full band and service and everything going on in a construction site.
Oh boy!
The windows were sealed. The front door was a 4x8 sheet of plywood being moved left to right. And the only thing I could say is this is the closest to a station nightclub fire my career has ever come, because you got 112 people in a construction site. So unfortunately, it was a church being built, and that brings a whole nother PR nightmare, which we have to wear that hat as well. Because if you make that decision, you need to own it, you need to sell it, and you need to justify it.
Right.
And thankfully, you just have that calm demeanor, and you explain these are the concerns, this is the reason why, and those folks were fantastic. That place was shut down inside of 10 minutes. We spent longer getting vehicles out of the parking lot, but it's little stuff like that you be part of. Your reality is you hit the nail on the head. You're a public servant. You're part of the community. Yep. I'm not a big fan of the servant word, but you're part of the community and you help folks. That's what we're here for. We're here to be a resource.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one thing, Ben, because people don't realize that, and this is more focused on code enforcement and the code. And when you use the building code, it's a lot more efficient in those settings than using the zoning code. Because when you talk about land use and you're like, hey, you can't have a church here. No, you're telling people you can't have a church period. Yeah, when you're saying, hey, this is unsafe for you and the people here, it's a whole different conversation.
So have you ever heard of the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act?
Yes, I've been Arlupa.
First test case in the United States right here.
Oh, wow.
Church wanted to expand in a zone they were not actually allowed in. However, we did allow assembly occupancy within that zone. Our zoning ordinance was out of date. They did not challenge to the Zoning Board of Appeals. However, the Department of Justice did show up in my office the next day, and I had to supply every assembly occupancy permit the city had ever issued in its history. And I sent about 12 to 15 banker boxes to DC and waited 6 months to hear, you're all set. Don't worry about it.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's an acronym I'll never forget.
Yeah. What I tell folks, when it comes to those type of land uses, assembly uses like that, I've always worked with the building code. I have to, because you can challenge a zoning code a lot easier than you can challenge a building code. Because I'm like, I'll see you in Rochester.
Yeah, but those relationships make such a difference, because even using the zoning code in the same municipality I was in prior, another church, a pastor had his mobile home parked out front. Well, zoning code didn't allow for it. I knocked on his door, and I think, oh great, here I go again. Great big hug and thank you. I've been waiting for somebody to tell me to move that. So every once in a while, it does work to the benefit. So
Sure. That's that, having that good communication skills and treating people with respect. And
actually now that pastor is my neighbor. I help out at the church with some youth leadership stuff, and actually help them on mergers and acquisitions in their own backyard, because they're looking to build a new church and they need a building official to look over some plans.
we have an awesome comment from Mr. Jack Applegate. Ben is doing a great job. We are fortunate Ben works so hard and works for the members. Fun interview. It was great to learn more about you and your city. Have a great day, all. I'm off to another meeting. It was a pleasure having you on, sir.
Appreciate that.
So Ben, I have last question for you before
Shoot.
we wrap it up. But so do you see yourself doing this for the rest of your life? You know, as we talked about, you are the youngest one in the room. So what do you want to be when you grow up, or have you already gotten there?
So the standing joke my wife and I have, her grandmother has a camp down in what's called Big Lake Township. It just got a name. It used to be like TP 142. I would love to be the plumbing inspector of Big Lake Township one day. And if your plumbing inspection gets in the way of my fishing, you're waiting. But to be entirely honest, one of the reasons I ran for the board in the first place was, if I was successful, and if I am successful in my next board run, because you can do 2 consecutive terms, at that point, I'll be 39. So I will have had board service. I can be that mentor. I can help carry on that institutional knowledge to learn from the Jim Browns of the world, who is my personal board mentor, and just carry that. Because if we lose the history of what we've done, we're doomed to repeat it. Why waste time and money if we don't have to?
Right.
And we have some really energetic folks and really passionate folks that just want to be pointed in the right direction. If we can help that, the entire organization, the entire membership is going to be better for it.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. And I love how interconnected we are. You know, you said hi, Jim Brown, and hi, Mr. Brown. You know, we missed you here at the Colorado ABM this year. Hopefully you're coming back this coming year. But we just do. We have such a great, intricate web of individuals and professionals and industry leaders here. It's pretty exciting to be a part of it. So.
Well, just on this call, you had, Jack's running this year. Cash chimed in, Jim chimed. I mean, that's a lot of great folks that, we all work so well together. You never know when you're going to bump into somebody you don't know.
Right.
And this organization is what, 70,000 members. So I mean, we're
knocking on the door.
So we're pretty interconnected, and it's funny how I can reach out to somebody in Maine and talk to them. And so Mr. Jim Brown says, "Are you buying?"
If you're coming,
If Jim shows up, absolutely.
No, it's awesome.
You bet.
But like I said, you have a lot of great folks. Like you mentioned, Carla. I reached out to Carla to set up a chapter in California, the first code enforcement chapter. She helped us out tremendously, and she goes, "Hey, why don't you talk to this guy or Susan Dowdy, super connector. Have you ever met her?" She knows everybody. She was like, "Pete, you need to connect with this person. You need to connect with Maddie over here. You need to connect with Liz over here. You need to."
That's the one thing I know I'd be remiss, and I was hoping to squeeze in. I know I got 2 minutes left. I don't think anybody can say enough about the staff of ICC.
Yeah.
I mean, without them, last night, Rich Anderson and Rachel were getting me the link, and yesterday morning I was on a Zoom call with Billy Nash. Yesterday, I was referencing the GR report from Steve Jones, which is kind of a standing joke among some of the GR reps. I get like 6 GR reports, so it's always kind of a competition to see who gets to me first. And I will give Dottie, New York/Florida, credit. She's usually first. Sorry, Steve. But so
that's awesome.
And there's another piece of interconnectivity that we all share. And if we get stuck in an airport, it's always Steve Jones's fault.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, we also have Steve Jones coming on sooner or later. I know
I'm
he
sorry.
agreed to it, so I'm holding up to him. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, like always with everything, you know, whether it's being at an ABM, whether it's being at a board meeting or just at another event, you know, it's sharing your time with somebody or this industry. It's something that you'll never give back. You won't ever get that time back. And so we appreciate you. We appreciate you taking the time
I'm
today.
happy to, because every minute is worthwhile, whether it's a conversation in the hallway or a Zoom call or a phone call or a text message.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. That's helping one another. I mean, I learned that very early on when I was part of the emerging leaders, and I was running up against the code thing. I was in the field. Surprisingly, we don't have the best service in Maine, so I couldn't get the app to go. I called Andre in Colorado and said, I know you know this. In 3 seconds, he had the chapter and verse for me, so I could say, this is why you can't do that.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
that makes a huge difference, and I'm happy to be part of it. I'm really honored the members spoke when they did in Pittsburgh and put me up on the dais, and I am going to bust my butt to make sure that I don't let them down.
I certainly think you're on your way there and already are. So, wonderful. Well, Ben, it was an absolute pleasure having you on with us today. We are out of time, so we are going to say goodbye. However,
thank you very much.
With everything, you know, this is a resource for all of us. You know, we are always here. We are always able to be connected with. If anyone needs anything, you've got all of us. So thanks for joining us today.
You guys make it worth it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody on the call for joining us as well. And thank you, Pete.
All right. Bye. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Have a wonderful Friday.
All right. So last comment. There you go. Interesting.
Miss Jennifer Morris, thank you so much.